pioneers, and we still have few of those mothers who are knocking on doors still with us. And we need to thank them for the will, the courage, the enthusiasm to do so, and we are actually their wings to go on with their vision. You know, having, if somebody will ask them if they could dream about having so many branches, so many workers, so many services, I'm not sure about. So we got this gift, and it's precious, and our responsibility is to keep this legacy and to go on.
Thank you, Ella.
Questions?
Please. Try.
One thing that you don't provide, Enosh, is marriage counseling. Why not? I mean, I've been in Enosh for 26 years, and I haven't found myself a bat zug. Why is this?
I like to start with there is no why not. Maybe we need to do so. And I think that in our family centers, there is some help for couples and that are in a situation like you described.
Well, how do you find a marriage partner?
You are talking about matchmaking.
Matchmaking, yes.
So counseling is something else, and matchmaking is something else. We don't do matchmaking, but now there is a new organization, or I would say approach that was put by Tzviel Rofel. Did you hear about it?
נפש של נפש.
We don't do
באינטרנט רק.
באינטרנט?
כן, נפש של נפש.
טוב.
שאלות נוספות?
You have hostels as well. You have hostels. You didn't talk about hostels.
Yeah, we have hostels. We provide supportive housing services to 1,700 people, 1,700. 160 out of them use our hostels. So less than, about 10% get hostel services, but 90%, which is the most important, get supportive help in their apartment, which is much better than to be in a hostel. Those who needs the hostel can get a hostel, but we provide most of our housing services in the community.
That's דיור מוגן.
Yeah.
And what about homes? Do you have homes?
What is homes? You mean centers like this?
No, a home is like a hostel, but it's just called a home, you know. Like they have them in the United States, I think, and also in Chutz La'aretz, let's say in Europe and in the United States, are homes where people can live, where you can live, you get your meals, and you have
In the supportive housing, we have different ways. You can have your own apartment and get the services in your own apartment. You can share an apartment with friends and get it there. And we have apartments that we rent to the people who need it, and they get the services in the same.
But the thing is that the person has to be independent, you see. You have to be independent. Like I live in a דיור מוגן, and I have to be completely independent. I have to do everything myself.
This is what rehabilitation is all about.
It's not very good.
But this is rehabilitation is all about, to be as independent as you can. You know, our aim is that you will be independent and not dependent.
I see.
This is the main goal.
Thank you. Now we will call...
יש לך מצגת?
אסנת, יש מצגת? לא.
מצגת רק לאדרן? אורן?
יש.
רק לה?
לא, רבקה, יש לך מצגת? לא.
אז אפשר לסגור
אין מצגת. So I would like to call one of my great social workers. Asnat. Please, Asnat.
רגע, מים, יש פה מים.
יש פה מים.
אני מחבר, אבל...
לא?
הנה, יש לך.
Okay, I sit. Shalom everybody, my name is Asnat, I'm a social worker and work here as a coordinator, what can in English, I don't know, in what we call supported housing. We don't have hostels here in Jerusalem, Enosh hostels here in Jerusalem. We have many people living in their own houses all over the city, and our staff comes and helps them in the house, in their own environment. That's it. You may ask if you want to anything while I speak. First, I want to say that I'm not a public speaker and my English is not that good, and you will have to forgive me. But I am a field worker. I come from the field, and all of us here work in the field. And what we can talk about and speak about is the things that we sometimes are able to do with the people we meet. The relationships that we sometimes are able to establish, and through those relationships help some of the people improve their situation in life. And I would like to share one such relationship with one person. 4 years ago, I will read it first and then maybe I can. 4 years ago, I met Igor. It's not his real name. I will try to stick to the not his real name. I hope I will not betray his trust. But I met him for the first time 4 years ago in his house, in his flat, with his flatmate. He lives in one of the less attractive streets or neighborhoods here in his neighborhood here in Jerusalem. And the apartment itself was not better than the street. When I came in, it was very dirty and very smelly, and old furnitures and broken furnitures and very messy. Igor and his flatmate hardly looked and smelled differently. So altogether it was a meeting which I felt primarily through my senses. I smelled it, it was very hard on my very hard experience. It was very hard to stay put. And to use a hard word, I was disgusted. I sat there and was a bit disgusted with what I smelled and saw. And my mind drifted very quickly to what has to be done. Very quickly, I thought, the words I remember were bleach, soap, scrub, throw away. And immediately I had a plan in my mind, like what has to be done. So when the counselor and I met Igor and his flatmate to draw a working plan, I had already an idea what has to be done. And Igor and his flatmate said the same things. They also wanted the flat to be cleaner, so it was very easy. It seemed very easy, and I was very happy, and we were like, we thought we could start and everything. seemed very optimistic. I will now only focus on Igor, although many of the things were related also to his flatmate, but it did not take long for us to see that words and actions apart. Words are apart and actions are apart. Igor was not keen on cleaning and arranging. In fact, he was not keen on doing anything much. He would go to work for 3 or 4 hours every day in a protected factory. He did go there every day, after which he went to eat in the center of town something, shawarma and I don't know, steak, something good, something for him it was good. It was usually not very healthy, and then he would go home and he would go climb into his bed and turn on the TV. And there he stayed. The TV was always on the Russian channel, and that was it. When we went there for meetings, we always felt we were interfering him. He unwillingly opened the door. Usually he would call from the bed, yes, and we could go in, and he would be in his underwears, getting up, and yes, a seat, and he would wear something and come and sit in the living room on a big reclining chair, which was broken, and all the time we had to we feared he would roll over. He is a big man, and yeah. So, and there we sat. Whenever the counselor reminded him of the plans made for this meeting to clean, he would react by uttering with the hand, a wave of the hand. He was not keen on talking either, although his Hebrew was okay. It was not rich or fluent. Mostly, it seemed to us, he felt as if it was a waste of time also to speak. When asked, he would say everything was okay and say nothing more. So his counselor and I were starting to feel desperate in the meeting with him. Nothing happened. Nothing of consequence was said. We were bored and felt like leaving after 10 minutes or so. And he seemed to want us to leave after 10 minutes or so. He would do like this and get up and say, well, like, this is your time to go. In supervision, when we met, his counselor and I began speaking of helplessness, of boredom and death. We agreed that the house looked and felt to us like a cemetery. It was like going into a cemetery. It was dark, it was lifeless. And when we imagined Igor lying in his bed, it seemed to us as if he was lying in a coffin. This was our imagination, but it was very vivid. The feeling was very strong. He seemed to us dead. Whenever we spoke of him, we would start the meeting upright, and then as it continued, we finished the meeting bent over and with low spirits, and we saw no opening of change. We could see no future, and we could think of nothing we can do. But in the meantime, we kept coming, and we didn't go after 10 minutes. And as a mean against the hard feelings which the meeting with Igor aroused, we started asking questions. Started just asking, talking, saying something, and we didn't. We left. I mean, we abandoned the goals that we so nicely written in the working program. We had this tabla, this. Yeah, it was written, very nicely, but we abandoned it and we just started talking and seeing maybe something would come out. And we asked questions about Russia, whatever came into our mind, and Igor answered. He spoke mainly, whenever we asked about Russia, he would speak. So he spoke of Odessa, where he came from, and the time he was a young father there. He had a small family there. He was father to he is still, but he was a father to a young daughter. And he would tell us of the time he took her to kindergarten, took her from kindergarten home, and walked hand in hand with her back home to ballet lessons and piano lessons, and they went to the sea and to the zoo, and he had all these memories. So we learned a lot. We knew already that his daughter is estranged from him. She was not willing to have any contact with him. We knew she lives in Bnei Brak. She became ultra-Orthodox. We knew she had children. We had a number of rabbitzins that he can sometimes contact and ask some questions. But mainly we had, not only the information was important, what was more important that we learned about him a lot by looking at him and hearing him, because whenever he spoke of Russia and his daughter, he would lit up, and his eyes were bright, and he was smiling, and he was almost happy. And whenever he would speak about the years here in Israel when they came, and the immigration crisis, which was very big, and the deterioration of the relationship with his wife, and psychotic breakdown, yes, and the hospitalization. That when he lost the light in his eyes, he became almost dead again. So this was very important. This knowledge, not only the details that we gathered, but also to see that something did give him life. That was the very, I think, the most important part of it. And sometimes we still try to move things here and now, and we would offer, maybe you will feel better if we clean your room, and maybe you will feel better if you go and bathe yourself and wear new clothes, and maybe we can cook something, and maybe, so we tried many things, but everything was like, no need, זה לא חשוב, it's not important. Okay? And one evening I sat opposite Igor and found myself just saying what I thought or felt authentically, and what will become of you, what will happen, my yeah. And after doing, he said, I'm waiting. So I said, for what? So he said, for the end to come. And what a man without a family can expect, can look forward to. I'm just waiting for the end to come. So looking back today, I think that moment was the first time I really listened to Igor. I heard him before, but I think this was the first time I listened to him and to what was important to him. The whole concept of rehabilitation meant nothing to him, and he didn't want any of the things that we can offer him or do with him, or he wanted something completely different, and for him rehabilitation meant something completely different, and he could do nothing with himself, or wanted to do nothing with himself as long as he has no connection with his daughter. So that was the point that we decided, the counselor and me, that we will make a very big effort there. We will try to do something, but we were not that optimistic, but we thought maybe we can do something. So contact the Rebbetzin, and when I talked to her on the phone, she is a very, very nice woman, very warm-hearted woman. And I talked to her and introduced myself and told her what I saw, what I heard. And she told me of his daughter and her unwillingness to even talk about her father, and that it's really, for her, a very traumatic topic. I don't know how to... But she was willing to ask her whether in advance we thought of something that we could offer. So we offered, and Igor wanted that. To buy, it was, Passover was approaching, so we decided maybe he will buy gifts for the grandchildren. He had grandchildren. He didn't know how many, and he didn't know their age or their names, but he knew he had some grandchildren. So we offered her, maybe we can send gifts for the children. And she said she would ask his daughter, and she did. And she gave us an answer that it was okay. So Igor went with his counselor to a specific toy shop, kosher toy shop, that it would be okay, the gift would be okay for the children to play with. And he bought, because we didn't know how many children and what their ages were, so it was a good opportunity for us to ask the Rebbetzin to give us the number of children, their names and their ages. So this was the first time he actually knew who were his grandsons, only grandsons, and he had already 5 grandsons. So we had the ages, and he went with the counselor, and they picked toys that are suitable for each of the children. And I went the day before Passover to Bnei Brak. I dressed appropriately, and I went there. And to my great surprise, his daughter came and saw me as well. And she is a very nice girl, a woman, not a girl, but a woman, with, and she had many, many questions to ask me. And she willingly talked about her childhood, her difficult childhood, her memories of his, the beginning of the crisis, how he became more and more eccentric, thank you, and how he became more and more violent, and the fear she had of him, although he never hit her. It was a very complex story that we never heard, that part we never heard from him, never. Also after I met her, we never heard anything of the sort from him. So she talked about it, and she wanted to know about genetics. So she needed information as well. And she also expressed fears about her function as a mother, that maybe things that she cannot do well are connected to his illness that is in her maybe, or maybe in her children also. And she was very open and very, very open. I think for me, I think probably Rivka will know what I'm talking about, that to sit in front of his daughter and having to understand her point of view, her experience, but not choosing any of them, but seeing the complexion of the whole thing, was very challenging thing, but very also
moving, touch.
משהו very
Powerful.
powerful, yes. So this meeting was over. She took the gifts, and we separated. It was a very warm meeting. That's it. And after that, we decided that we have to continue the small connection that through me has started. So we decided to write letters and send them to the Rebbetzin, and she can decide whether she gives them to the daughter, because the daughter's situation was lo yatziv, unstable. She was sometimes less stable, sometimes more strong, sometimes willing to hear from him, sometimes not. And we only wrote 2 letters. The first he wrote in Russian himself, just a few lines that the daughter does not read or speak Russian. So we had a counselor here, a different counselor, not his own counselor, who is a Russian speaker, translated into Hebrew, and we sent both, also the translation, also the original document, and we sent them both. And she got them. And the Rebbetzin, every time she called me and said, "We got it. What do you say? Maybe I will give it to her now. Maybe I will wait a few weeks." She would consult. Yeah. And we would, and that's how it went. The other letter, Igor didn't want to write. He said, "For what? She doesn't call me. He wanted something to happen now, and it wasn't going to happen very soon." And after a while, he was persuaded to sit and write, but he didn't know what to say, because it was hard for him to speak. So I thought maybe what he told us, the memories that he has about the sea, the zoo, and the piano lesson, maybe that would be a good idea. So everything he remembered I wrote in Hebrew, and we sent it also. By then it was already almost Rosh Hashanah, and so Igor wanted to buy something for his daughter for Rosh Hashanah. He wanted to give her a necklace with her name, and the Rebbetzin thought it was not a good idea, and also she asked his daughter, and she didn't want anything personal from him. She didn't want anything from him to her. She only allowed him to buy something for the children, but he wanted something for her. So he decided to buy something for the house, so everybody can enjoy. I forgot to say that also she after the meeting she allowed us to bring him a photo of her and the children. So now the counselor had a photo, not framed, but I think they hang it on a board on the wall in his room, and wrote the names of the children. So he knew what the children's names were and how they look like. It was not a very recent photo, but it was a good photo and very clear, and you could see them. So that was already before. So for Rosh Hashanah he bought some dish that you can serve for the table, and in Sukkot I went again and gave. It was a very huge event there. She had this strengthening. Do you know what I mean? That convention that people come to strengthen their belief. And I came, and there were many people there, and his daughter was sitting there, but I could see she was very anxious that I might say something, or something that will expose her. So I just said hello and a few more words, and I went away after a while. And after a few days, she phoned me, and she said that she really thanked me that I didn't expose her, that I was that I kept my distance. And she spoke of the letters, and she didn't remember any of the things that he was talking about. She didn't know what he meant when he said that he loved her so much. she couldn't return his love, and she wasn't able to understand. But then she said, but if it's very important to him, I am willing to meet him. But she told me all the time, I cannot love him back, I don't feel it, I can't remember the whole, I only remember bad things. And also, I don't want him to think that this is a beginning of something very close. And she had also these klalim, rules, that he wouldn't touch her. And she had her rules, and we arranged the time and the place. We met at the Rebbetzins' house, and the counselor and me, we tried to help Igor prepare for the meeting, because he wanted to ask her very hard questions, which is right, but we thought maybe it would be too soon. We were afraid it would blow in his face, and also we wanted him to make sure that he would be nicely dressed and clean. And so we reminded him to bathe and to wear, I don't know, clean shirt, and we went. We drove to Nebrak. We didn't speak much on the way. He was very quiet. He always was quiet, but more quiet. And then we came, and the daughter came. It was very, very high. It was very tense and very emotional, but they were very yeah. She especially was, she had the whole kind of rational way of thinking about it and explaining why she's meeting him. It was very, but you could see she was very, very emotional underneath. And also him, they spoke, and he asked, and she asked, and they spoke, and it was okay. But it was obvious that nothing wrong will come of it now. I mean, he was very moved, but also very disappointed when we left. Because she was willing to accept his gifts to the children, but no more. She was willing for him to speak with the Rebbetzin, but not herself. And it was very hard for him to accept that we came so far. Something happened that did not happen for 20 years, but no more, at least for now. After that, Igor I cannot say that after that his behavior and his functioning and everything was dramatically better. It is not that kind of a story. His functioning deteriorated. He was sick. He is very sick. He had many problems. But he asked, for the first time, he said, I don't think I should live in the apartment any longer. I think I should go into a hostel and have people around me and not be alone anymore, and have people take care of me. So we helped him move into a hostel we thought would be good for him. And I know for a fact that he continues his contact with his daughter through the Rebbetzin and through the social worker there, because we made the connection. And that's it. That is my story, or Igor's story, or I don't know, our mutual joint story with Moshe here, who was his counselor, and Evgeny, who was his counselor before. And that's what we were able to do in the 4 years, I think, or 3.5 years between Moshe and I knew him. I wanted to say that from a theoretical point of view, now that I learned more and speak about it more, we moved from one point of view, which was rehabilitating, making changes in the way he functions in his life. We had no choice, because that's what he led us to realize, that we can't do that without hearing him and listening to him, and that's where recovery comes. I mean, I think I learned it first from the field, and only then from theory, because we had no choice. It was obvious that this was the way it should be. That's it.
I think it was some kind of process of coming from doing to being, and from rehabilitation to recovery, and in recovery finding the meaning of life. So that was the story of Igor. Thank you, Osna. Rivka, please.
When Annie asked me to present this talk, I felt somewhat uncertain. When I realized that it has to be in English, I really felt bad. Today, I can say that this turned to be an opportunity not only to overcome the language barrier, but also to share with you a subject I have been writing about recently. I direct Jerusalem branch of Milam, a group of 7 centers all over the country, which provide individual and group counseling to families of people with psychiatric disabilities. This is also an opportunity to convey the voice of healthy siblings of the psychiatric disabled, who have traditionally been kept in silence. Several years ago, I was invited by the Ministry of Defense in Jerusalem to facilitate a group of bereaved sisters. They were 4 teenagers, all from a residential community adjacent to Jerusalem, who had sought to participate in a support group for bereaved siblings, similar to the group to which their parents belonged. In their request, the girls expressed their grievance that they had not been taken into consideration and that their distress had not been addressed. Approximately 6 years ago, when Milam, the counseling centers for families of people with psychiatric disabilities, were established, I realized that most of those seeking help were parents. Here too, siblings' voices did not reach us. Based on my experience with siblings in group facilitating and in treatment of individuals, I have directed a considerable amount of my efforts to identifying siblings of individuals with psychiatric disabilities in order to examine their therapeutic needs. The more brothers and sisters I've encountered with psychiatric disabled siblings, the more I have learned about the complex impact of this sibling relationship. Based on my clinical experience and in light of the necessity for placing the needs of healthy siblings of the psychiatric disabled on the agenda of mental health authorities, I have chosen this as the subject of my doctoral thesis. The anti-institutionalization revolution, subsequent to which many individuals suffering from emotional disorders have been released from institutions and psychiatric hospitals to the community has transferred the major part of the burden of their treatment from the mental health system to the family. Today, the main caregivers for these patients are their family members. As a result, in recent years, there has been an increasing interest in the family members of individuals with psychiatric disabilities, though the main emphasis has been placed on the parents. Different studies have examined the effects of the psychiatric disability on the parents of the sick children, their patterns of coping with the disease, and their various needs in relation to it. The healthy siblings in the family get minimal attention with respect to research and theory, as well as in the therapeutic field. The manner in which the psychiatric disability affects the siblings has yet to be adequately studied. Among all of the relationships in the family, the sibling connection is for the most part the longest lasting and the most continuous relationship. Sibling relations include common genetic background as well as shared life experiences. Sibling relations are complex. On the one hand, they provide an opportunity for developing communication skills, cooperation, problem solving, developing intimacy, and allow for reflecting, validation, trust, and a sense of belonging. However, these relations are also characterized by ambivalence, envy, competition, distress, and conflict. Sibling relations, with all of their complexity, are a meaningful cornerstone in the formation of identity, personality, and the self-image of each sibling in the family. When one of the siblings is affected by any lengthy illness, physical or emotional, it has a notable impact on the healthy siblings, regardless of the nature of the relationship. Psychiatric disability alters the familial balance, aggravating the conflicts inherent in sibling relations, making the duality of love-hate relations among siblings more acute and producing a sense of distress. The degree of the burden placed upon the healthy siblings varies in accordance with the character of the relations prior to the appearance of the illness, the degree of the involvement of the parents in the treatment of their sick child, the character of the illness, its symptoms, etc. Usually, siblings serve as the main caregivers when the parents are unable or unwilling to take on this task. In general, sisters, more often than brothers, are those who are involved in the direct treatment of their sick siblings. However, the healthy siblings experience difficulty, a burden, and distress even if they are not directly involved in the treatment of their sick sibling. In what manner are the healthy siblings affected by the psychiatric disability of their brothers or sisters? Based on the literature, it appears that the impact of the psychiatric disability on the healthy siblings is quite extensive and impacts upon many areas of their lives. Thus, the psychiatric disability of the sibling affects their personality and their self-perception, as well as their choice of profession, relationship patterns, political positions, and plans for the future. The effects of the psychiatric disability on all of the healthy members of the family are evident in two ways: the objective burden and the subjective burden. The objective burden relates to coping with the manifestations of the illness itself, such as the behavior of the patient, the family's coping with the mental health system, economical problems resulting from the illness, and the disturbance to the family and household routine. The subjective burden relates to the emotional implication of the sickness for the healthy family member, such as fear, anxiety, anger, helplessness, pain, sorrow and sadness, loss, envy, shame and guilt, together with love, concern, empathy, and identification. From various studies conducted among healthy siblings of the psychiatric disabled, it is evident that they report both the objective burden and a heavy subjective burden. The data from these studies indicate difficult emotions among the healthy siblings. First of all, the siblings report a feeling of guilt, affecting the ability of the healthy sibling to move on and live his life, while the sick sibling remains stuck with his illness. This feeling is referred to as survivor's guilt. Similarly, survivor's guilt affects the ability to experience life's difficulties, since compared with the difficulty that their sick sibling confronts, even the major crises in life are relegated to insignificance. Thus, the legitimacy of suffering and experiencing difficulties is taken from the healthy sibling. This is likely to produce anger. Guilt is also likely to arise in relation to the healthy sibling's contribution to the illness. What did I do that caused my sibling to be sick? And with regard to the feeling that not enough is being done to help the sick sibling. Feelings of loss and mourning arise with respect to the sibling that they might have had, as well as mourning over normative sibling relations. Healthy siblings report that having been preoccupied with coping with their sibling's illness, they felt that they lost their childhood and their innocence, and they mourn over them. Likewise, they feel that they have been abandoned by their parents who invest their time and energy in treating their sick child, which may lead to envy. Often, the investment of the parents in the sick siblings results in the healthy sibling concealing his real needs and refraining from expressing his feelings in order not to be an added burden to the parents. These siblings assume the role of the healthy and the good sibling, making greater efforts and striving to excel, sometimes attempting to compensate in other areas of life, like studies or work. Another effect of the psychiatric disability on the healthy siblings is the loss of limits and distortion of roles, turning the healthy siblings into parental children as caregiver and partners to the secret with their parents. Secrets and secretiveness lead to a sense of loneliness and contribute to social isolation. The social stigma and the shame force most of the healthy siblings to hide the issue of their siblings' illness. Hiding the sickness is also connected to loyalty to the sibling and the lack of clarity regarding what this sibling would wish his brothers to tell about him. This matter results in the loosening and reduction of social ties. Telling is forbidden, inviting others to your home is forbidden. Occasionally, the healthy siblings have to lie or practice avoidance. Likewise, the healthy siblings experience fear of rejection and difficulty in trusting others. Coping with the psychiatric disability by the healthy siblings also creates fear, especially in facing the lack of certainty inherent to the sickness, the manner and the timing of the next outbreak. The fact that psychiatric disability may have a genetic basis also raises fears that might become affected by the disease and even transmit it to their offspring. The fear of establishing a family is also connected to the sense of a heavy burden and the feeling that they may not be able to cope with an additional burden in the form of children of their own. The fear is also related to the uncertainty regarding the future and the role awaiting the healthy sibling when his parents will no longer be alive. The feeling that the healthy sibling will remain the only primary caregiver for a sick sibling is a deterrent which overwhelms and raises serious concerns. In this sense, the psychiatric disability affects the general dynamic in the family with a lot of tension developed between the healthy siblings who take part in the caregiving and those who have opted to distance themselves. In this context, it is noteworthy that society takes for granted that it is the parent's obligation to take care of their sick child. Alternately, the obligation of the healthy sibling is vague and unclear and often perceived as a voluntary matter. This vagueness may be beneficial for some siblings who will use this to justify their choice of distancing themselves and their lack of involvement in the life of their sick brother or sister. However, this may be an hindrance of other healthy siblings that will intensify their sense of confusion and their internal conflicts with respect to their obligations to their sick siblings. The objective burden placed on the shoulders of the healthy siblings is evident in the resources that they have to invest as caregivers for their sick sibling, which complicates their ability to invest in other areas of their own life, such as studies, work, and personal relationships. Likewise, coping with the sibling's illness results in a feeling of loss of freedom and privacy derived from the behavior of the sick sibling, which can defy emotional and physical limits. He can be demanding in relation to his healthy sibling's life, actively and purposefully interfering with his life. For example, multiple telephone calls, many surprise visits, etc. One can see that the psychiatric disability of one sibling affects all members of the family, including the healthy siblings who suffer in many areas of their lives as a result of coping with the situation. Appropriate care for siblings has to address the components of the damage as a whole, both subjective and objective, in order to try to mitigate the process of coping and to improve their personal feeling of well-being.
Thank you, Rivka. Now, Dani. אתה עכשיו הפסקה? אז